My mother's hand connected with my face in the middle of my grandmother's funeral luncheon. The sound echoed through the church hall, cutting through conversations about casseroles and childhood memories. My cousins froze mid-bite. My uncle's fork clattered against his plate. My brother's coworkers stared in uncomfortable silence. I'd corrected her. That was my crime. She'd been telling everyone how she paid my rent, how she supported my little hobby financially. I hadn't taken her money in 2 years. I'd been supporting myself completely, building something real while she told everyone I was still dependent on her charity. Nobody cares about your little app, Aubrey, she said, her voice sharp and clear. Get a real job. My wine glass slipped from my hand and shattered on the linoleum floor. Red liquid spread across the white tiles like blood. My jaw throbbed where she'd hit me, but that wasn't the worst pain. The worst pain was seeing my brother look away, unwilling to defend me. The worst pain was the pitying glances from relatives who'd believe her version of events. My grandmother had just been buried, and my mother chose that moment to humiliate me publicly. My name is Aubrey Ellis. I'm 27 years old, and my mother has been trying to bulldoze my dreams since I was 14. That's when I first told her I wanted to start a tech company, that I wanted to build something that mattered. She'd laughed. Actually laughed at a 14-year-old's dreams. That's for privileged kids in California, she'd said. Rich kids with safety nets. You need to be realistic. My brother Nathan was her golden child. He'd gone to state college, gotten his accounting degree, found a steady job at a respectable firm. He had a boring girlfriend named Kelsey who worked in HR and never challenged anything my mother said. They were planning a traditional wedding. They represented everything my mother valued: safety, predictability, conformity. I represented everything she feared: risk, ambition, the possibility of failure. She had Nathan to make her look good at family gatherings, and she had me to serve as a cautionary tale. But I didn't stop dreaming. I just learned to dream quietly, away from her disapproval, building something she couldn't see until it was too late to destroy. I got the email on a Tuesday afternoon. My app had been accepted as a finalist for the National Tech Innovation Conference. I was the youngest person on the finalist list by 3 years. The conference organizers wanted me to pitch my concept on the main stage, in front of investors and industry leaders. I told my mother that evening over dinner. She was serving meatloaf, the same meal she made every Tuesday like clockwork. I handed her my phone, showing her the acceptance email. She glanced at it without reading past the first line. Didn't even set down her fork. I'm not clapping for fantasies, Aubrey, she said flatly. You need to make real money. Not chase pipe dreams that go nowhere. Then she stood up, carried her plate to the sink, and left me sitting at the kitchen table alone. Through the window, I watched her go to her bedroom and close the door. No congratulations. No curiosity about what I'd built. Just dismissal and the sound of her door locking. I sat there for 20 minutes, staring at my phone screen, wondering why I'd expected anything different. My mother told my aunt I was unstable. I found out when Aunt Claire called me, her voice careful and concerned, asking if I was taking care of myself mentally. Mom said you're having episodes, she explained. She said you quit your job without a backup plan. She's worried you're not thinking clearly. I had quit my part-time administrative job. But I'd saved 6 months of expenses first, and I had 3 beta clients already paying for my app. It wasn't reckless. It was calculated risk based on actual traction. My mother also told Nathan I was having another manic episode, which was particularly cruel because I'd struggled with anxiety in college and she knew how much those words hurt. The worst part came when I tried to attend a business conference in Chicago. The hotel called me, confused, saying my emergency contact had called to cancel my reservation, claiming I was experiencing a mental health crisis and shouldn't travel alone. My mother had called them pretending to be my emergency contact, trying to sabotage my business trip. She showed up unannounced at the co-working space I was renting downtown. I was in the middle of a video call with a potential investor when the receptionist knocked on my door, looking uncomfortable. "Your mother's here," she whispered. "She's talking to everyone in the lobby." I ended my call early and went out to find my mother telling the receptionist and two other members that I was mentally unwell and they needed to keep an eye on me. She was using her concerned parent voice, the one that made her sound reasonable and caring instead of controlling. My mentor, Alyssa, was in the kitchen area. She heard everything. Later, she found me locked in the bathroom, crying into my sleeves, my laptop abandoned on the couch. "She's trying to make you quit," Alyssa said through the door. "Don't let her." But I was so tired. Tired of fighting for every inch of progress. Tired of defending my choices. Tired of being treated like a child having a breakdown instead of an adult building a business. I almost gave up that day. The quietest cruelties hurt the most. Like when my mother said, so calmly it sounded like a fact instead of an insult, "You'll never be enough." I'd just shown her the results from our first successful round of user testing. 200 beta users, 93% positive feedback, specific feature requests that showed people actually understood what I was building. She glanced at my laptop screen for maybe 5 seconds. Shrugged. "Even if you make it," she said, "you'll never be enough. Not for the real world. You're not built for it." She said it the same way she might comment on the weather. Casual. Certain. Like my insufficiency was simply a reality we both needed to accept. I think that hurt more than the slap at the funeral. The slap was anger. This was something colder. This was her genuine belief that I was fundamentally inadequate, incapable of the success I was chasing. I didn't respond. What could I say? I just closed my laptop and left her house, driving home in silence, her words echoing in my head for days. At Nathan's engagement party, my mother gave a toast. She stood at the head table, champagne glass raised, smiling at the 70 guests packed into the country club ballroom. "I've been blessed with 2 children," she began. "One gave me peace of mind. The other gave me gray hairs." People laughed. Polite, uncomfortable laughter that acknowledged the joke while recognizing its cruelty. Nathan looked down at his plate. Kelsey squeezed his hand. My mother kept smiling, waiting for the laughter to die down before continuing her praise of Nathan's accomplishments. I sat at a side table with cousins who avoided eye contact. My champagne went flat in my hand as I pretended to smile, pretended this was normal family teasing instead of public humiliation. The toast lasted 7 minutes. My mother mentioned Nathan's grades, his job, his maturity, his excellent choice in a partner. She mentioned me exactly once, as the child who'd given her gray hairs. I left before the cake was served. I discovered my mother had co-signed my apartment lease without my knowledge or consent. She'd contacted my landlord months earlier, claiming she wanted to help me by guaranteeing the lease. The landlord, assuming this was a generous parental gesture, had processed the paperwork. Now she held it over me constantly. Every disagreement ended with the same threat: "Keep pushing me and see how long you last without a place to live." When I told her I was moving out, finding a new apartment where she had no legal connection, she smiled. "Go ahead. Let's see how long you last on your own." I found a studio across town, smaller and more expensive, but completely mine. The day I signed the new lease felt like declaring independence. My mother called it another impulsive decision and predicted I'd be back, begging for help within 3 months. I'd been in that studio for 18 months now. She still occasionally mentioned how I'd run away instead of accepting her support. Christmas morning, I opened the gift my mother had wrapped in silver paper and placed prominently under the tree. It was a job application packet for a receptionist position at Nathan's accounting firm. A sticky note on top read, "Be practical. Be an adult. Love, Mom." Inside was a printed job description, a blank application form, and a note from Nathan saying the position paid $32,000 a year with benefits. My mother had coordinated this with him, enlisted him in her campaign to make me give up on my app. You could start after New Year's, she said brightly, watching me read through the papers. Nathan says they're looking for someone organized and professional. It's perfect for you. What she meant was, it's safe. It's small. It's something I can understand and control. I thanked her politely, took the packet home, and recycled it that evening. Then I sent 3 more investor pitches, determined to prove I didn't need her vision of success. My mother promised she'd attend my app's public launch demo. I'd sent her the invitation 6 weeks in advance. She'd RSVP'd yes, said she wanted to finally see what all this fuss was about. I'd believed her. The venue held 200 people. Investors, potential clients, tech journalists, and a few supportive friends. I'd spent 3 months preparing this presentation, perfecting every slide, rehearsing every transition. My mother never showed up. Her seat in the 3rd row stayed empty the entire evening. I had my first anxiety attack on stage that night. Mid-presentation, my hands started shaking. My throat closed up. I forgot my next talking point and stood there frozen, staring at 200 faces while my brain screamed at me to run. Alyssa walked me through it from the front row, mouthing encouragements until I found my voice again. The presentation recovered. We got good feedback afterward. But I spent 20 minutes crying in the bathroom before I could face anyone at the reception. My mother texted me at midnight, something came up. How did it go? I sold my violin to make rent during a particularly tight month. It wasn't a family heirloom despite what my mother later claimed. I'd bought it myself at 15, saved babysitting money for 8 months to afford it. But it represented the last connection to a version of myself that had dreamed smaller, safer dreams. Selling it hurt. But keeping my business alive hurt less. My mother found out from a family friend who'd seen the listing online. She called me screaming, then called every relative to tell them I'd pawned family heirlooms because of my failure. At the next family gathering, my uncle asked if I needed money. My aunt sent me a care package with grocery store gift cards. My cousin posted something vague on social media about family helping family through tough times. No one questioned my mother's version of events. No one asked me directly what had happened or why. They just accepted her narrative. I was failing, desperate, selling precious things to survive my poor choices. The violin had bought me 6 more weeks to find clients. It was worth it. My first feature article came out in a regional business magazine. The woman building empathy into AI ran across 3 pages with photos of me at my laptop, professionally shot and carefully edited. I was proud. Actually proud of something I'd built, something that existed independent of my mother's approval or disapproval. She found the article online and posted it to her social media with a caption that made my stomach turn, proud of my daughter, but she really owes it all to the structure I gave her. The discipline I instilled. The foundation I built. She took credit for everything. Made herself the hero of my story, the supportive mother who'd raised an entrepreneur despite the challenges. People commented congratulating her on raising such an ambitious daughter. She responded to each comment, expanding on her sacrifices and wisdom. She'd spent years telling me to quit, and now she was claiming credit for my refusal to listen to her. I overheard my mother on the phone with my aunt one afternoon when I'd stopped by to pick up mail still being delivered to her address. She was in the kitchen, her voice carrying through the house. "I'm worried about Aubrey," she was saying. "She's spiraling. I think she might be on drugs. She's lost weight, she's not sleeping. She refuses to get help or listen to reason." I stood frozen in the hallway, listening to her describe a version of me that didn't exist. I'd lost weight because I was stress eating less and walking more. I wasn't sleeping well because I was working hard, not because I was spiraling or using drugs. That same week, I got a call back from an investor I'd pitched 2 months earlier. They wanted to discuss terms for initial funding. My spiral was actually the beginning of real traction. But my mother's story spread through the family faster than any of my actual achievements. By the weekend, 3 relatives had reached out with concerned messages about my health. My mother staged what she called an intervention. She'd coordinated with my uncle, my cousin, and Nathan. They showed up at my apartment on a Saturday morning, let themselves in with the spare key I'd given Nathan for emergencies, and found me working at my kitchen table. "We need to talk," my uncle began, his voice gentle but firm. "Your mother's concerned. We're all concerned." They sat me down like I was an addict in denial. Told me I was throwing my life away. Said I needed to be realistic about my limitations. Suggested therapy, medication, a return to normal employment. I let them finish. Then I showed them my laptop screen, a signed contract with my second paying client, a mid-sized healthcare company testing my app for their customer service department. "I just signed this yesterday," I said calmly. "I'm not spiraling. I'm building something real." They looked at each other uncertainly. Nathan mumbled an apology. My cousin said something about miscommunication. My uncle suggested we all just wanted what was best for me. They left 20 minutes later. None of them asked about the contract or what my app actually did. I stopped taking my mother's calls for 3 weeks after the intervention. Let them go to voicemail, deleted them without listening. I needed space from her constant negativity, her endless predictions of my failure. She responded with an email that my lawyer later called unhinged. In it, she threatened to sue me for emotional damage if I used her name in any of my marketing materials or public statements about my business. I'd never planned to mention her in my marketing. But her threat revealed how she saw our relationship, as something she owned, something she could control through legal action if necessary. That email scared me more than the intervention had. It showed me she wasn't just unsupportive. She was actively hostile to my success, willing to take legal action to maintain her narrative that I was unstable and failing. I forwarded the email to a business attorney and started documenting everything. Every text message. Every voicemail. Every public statement she made about me. If my mother wanted a legal fight, I'd be ready. I hired the attorney quietly, not to fight my mother but to protect what I was building. The lawyer specialized in family business disputes and had seen cases where parents tried to claim ownership over their adult children's businesses. "Your mother co-signed your old lease," the attorney explained. "She might argue she provided financial support that entitles her to equity or compensation. Document everything showing you've been self-sufficient." I pulled 2 years of bank statements, showing no deposits from my mother. I compiled receipts proving I'd paid my own rent, bought my own equipment, funded my own business expenses. I created a timeline showing exactly when I'd stopped accepting any help from her. The attorney reviewed everything and nodded approvingly. "This is solid. If she tries anything, you're protected." I paid his retainer from my business account, money I'd earned from actual clients paying for actual services. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was paying legal fees to protect myself from the woman who claimed I couldn't survive without her support. My first major client came from an unexpected source. At a family barbecue, I'd mentioned my app to various relatives, more out of obligation than hope. Most had nodded politely and changed the subject. 3 weeks later, I got an email from Tyler Morrison, the son of my mother's best friend. He ran operations for a regional healthcare network and had been at that barbecue. "I was intrigued by what you described," his email began. "Can you send me a detailed proposal?" I sent him everything. Project overview, pricing structure, implementation timeline, testimonials from my 2 existing clients. He responded within 2 days requesting a call. We signed a contract 2 weeks later. A 1-year pilot program, substantial monthly fee, with options for expansion if results met benchmarks. When Tyler's company website went live with case studies, my business was featured prominently with his testimonial. My mother saw it. Her best friend's son was publicly endorsing the app she'd spent years calling a fantasy. She didn't congratulate me. She sent a 2-line text, "Saw Tyler's using your app. Surprised he took that risk." My company got selected for a billboard spot outside the university where I'd spent so many nights crying in parking lots after phone calls with my mother. The outdoor advertising company was running a promotion featuring local businesses, and my app had been chosen as one of 12 featured companies. My name was on it. 30 feet tall, visible from the highway. Aubrey Ellis, founder and CEO, beneath my company logo. I drove past it the first time it went up, pulled into that same parking lot where I'd cried 3 years earlier, and just stared at it. Proof that I'd built something real. Proof that all those nights of doubt and fear and working until 2 in the morning had resulted in something tangible enough to put on a billboard. My mother's email arrived 6 hours after the billboard went live. You think you're better than your own mother now? Not better. Just different. Just successful in a way she'd spent years insisting was impossible. The Fortune 500 company my mother worshipped, the one she'd begged Nathan to intern for during college, reached out with a partnership offer. They wanted to integrate my app into their customer service platform, offering me a lucrative buyout with a position as a senior consultant. It was everything my mother had wanted for me. Corporate security, prestigious company name, guaranteed salary, benefits. Everything she'd told me to pursue instead of my risky startup. I turned them down. Politely, professionally, but definitively. I wasn't interested in being absorbed into someone else's vision. I wanted to build my own legacy, maintain control over the direction and values of what I'd created. My mother found out through her friend whose husband worked at the company. She called me for the first time in weeks, her voice shaking, with anger and disbelief. You turned down that offer? Are you insane? She couldn't comprehend why anyone would choose independence over corporate prestige. It revealed how little she understood about what I was actually building. A local TV station ran a segment called Mothers of Entrepreneurs, profiling women who'd raised successful business owners. Somehow, my mother got selected. She was interviewed in her living room, sitting in the same chair where she'd told me countless times to give up. I always knew Aubrey would succeed, she told the camera, her voice warm with maternal pride. Even when she doubted herself, I believed in her vision. I taught her to never give up on her dreams. The segment showed photos of me at various ages. My mother narrated each one, spinning stories about encouraging my ambitions and supporting my risk-taking. She claimed credit for every success while erasing every conversation where she'd told me to quit. I watched it online, feeling numb. Then I did something I'd never done before. I contacted the TV station with a polite correction, attaching screenshots of text messages, emails, and documented instances of her opposition and sabotage. The producer called me personally to apologize. They couldn't retract the segment, but they noted my response in their files. The Business Expo was the biggest event in our state. Companies paid thousands for booth space. The main stage featured LED screens 3 stories tall, visible from anywhere in the convention center. My company was selected as a featured spotlight business. My face appeared on those massive screens, alongside my company name and logo. But it was the quote that made my throat tight. They told me to get a real job. So I created one. I hadn't known my mother would be there. She'd come with Nathan and Kelsey, who'd received tickets through Nathan's firm. She'd probably expected to walk through the expo feeling superior, seeing small booths and struggling startups that confirmed her worldview. Instead, she walked in and saw my face 3 stories tall above the main entrance. I was on stage when it happened, participating in a panel discussion about overcoming barriers to entrepreneurship. From my seat, I saw her in the crowd. Saw her look up. Saw her face change from confident to confused to something that looked like grief. She walked out mid-ceremony. Someone from Nathan's firm caught my mother in the parking lot afterward. They didn't mean to eavesdrop, but she was standing next to their car, talking to herself, and they couldn't help but hear. She was supposed to need me, my mother was saying, her voice broken. She was supposed to fail and come back and realize I was right. She was supposed to need me. Nathan told me about it later, his voice careful and uncomfortable. Mom's having a hard time, he said. She didn't realize how successful you'd become. She thought she still had time to fix things. Fix things. Like my success was something broken that needed repair. I felt nothing when Nathan told me this. Not satisfaction at her pain. Not guilt for causing it. Just a strange, calm emptiness. The little girl who desperately wanted her mother's approval was gone. In her place was a woman who'd built something real without it. My inbox exploded after the expo. Recruiters reaching out with opportunities. Potential clients requesting proposals. Speaking invitations from conferences across the country. My app had gone from local success to regional recognition overnight. Then I got an email from Nathan with the subject line, "I'm sorry. Mom's spiraling," he wrote. "She's been trying to figure out how to fix things with you, but she doesn't know where to start. She realizes now that she was wrong about your business, but she doesn't know how to say it. He suggested I call her. Said she needed to hear from me. Said family was important and we should try to repair the relationship." I read the email while sitting in the San Diego airport, waiting to board a flight for a speaking engagement. I didn't respond. I was too busy living the life my mother had spent years insisting was impossible. Nathan could tell her I was busy. It was the truth. 3 months after the expo, my mother launched her own blog. Parenting with Purpose, advice from a mother who raised an entrepreneur. She posted about supporting your children's dreams. About believing in them even when they doubt themselves. About the importance of letting them take risks and make mistakes. Every piece of advice directly contradicted how she'd actually treated me. The blog got minimal traction. 50 followers, mostly her friends and relatives. Comments were sparse and generic. Turns out people weren't interested in parenting advice from someone whose primary credential was having a successful daughter who barely spoke to her. After 2 months, she stopped posting. Her last entry was titled, "When They Succeed Without You." Then she reached out again, this time through email. "I need help paying off a loan. I know we've had our differences, but I'm your mother. Family helps family." I read the email 3 times. Remembered every time she'd told me to get a real job. Every time she'd predicted my failure. Every public humiliation and private cruelty. I replied with one sentence, "You told me to grow up and get a job." So I did. Then I blocked her email address. I stood at the conference hall window 6 months later, looking at my newest billboard. This one was downtown, bigger and brighter than the university one. My company had expanded to 3 cities, hired 12 employees, and was profitable beyond my early projections. Behind me, a journalist from a national business magazine was setting up recording equipment. They were interviewing me for a feature article about women entrepreneurs disrupting traditional industries. "What motivated you to keep going when things were difficult?" the journalist asked, once we'd started recording. I thought about my mother's slap at the funeral. The intervention. The years of being told I wasn't enough and never would be. The lonely nights working until 3 in the morning while everyone else told me to quit. Being told I wasn't enough, I said finally. Over and over, by people who were supposed to support me. Until I realized that their opinion of my worth had nothing to do with my actual value. The journalist nodded, scribbling notes. "Do you ever regret the relationships you've lost along the way?" I looked out the window at the billboard with my name on it. Thought about the mother who'd wanted me small and manageable and dependent. Thought about the daughter who'd chosen herself instead. "No," I said honestly. "I don't regret becoming the person I needed to be." I walked away from that interview not bitter or angry. Just finally, completely free. My mother had tried to clip my wings for years, convinced I'd fall if I tried to fly. Instead, I'd built my own airplane and soared higher than she'd ever imagined possible. The little girl who'd cried in parking lots was gone. In her place was a woman who knew her own worth, who'd built something lasting, who didn't need anyone's permission to dream. My mother had told me to stop dreaming and get a real job. I'd done exactly that. Just not the way she'd meant.